Get started.
Okay, Jill, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure, I'm Jill Baker Tingy. I am the Extension Educator, Associate Professor in Elko County, Nevada, which is in our northeastern part of the state. And I've been working with this project for, I don't know, almost a couple of years, I think, with Brenda, and have really learned a lot and see the importance of working in this area.
My name is Brenda Freeman, and I work in Extension. I was a professor of counseling, and now I'm working grants and research. I've been doing farm stress work for about 8 years now, and we've learned a lot, and we're excited to be here. And I want to thank Melanie for the invitation to be here. So we're going to just kick this off and see if we can. Um, Basically, what we're going to do today is we have two films, and we'd like to show you their short documentaries that are on farm stress. And so we are looking at them from the occupational resiliency viewpoint. So our idea is to show the films, and then in a month, on Wednesday, February 25th, we'll have a panel discussion about the film. So we'll probably have a little time today at the end to get your reactions. And I'm so pleased that you're here, and I thank you so much for that. And we're eager to hear your thoughts on this. It's a major issue right now for us out in the West, and so that's what we are going to do today. So we are a part of RASIP, which is the Western Regional Agriculture Stress Assistance Program. And I know you're probably aware that you've got a similar FARSAN program, NIFA-funded FARSAN program in each part of the country. And so we're with the Western region. And so our work today has been funded through a grant to Washington State University that it has an overall goal of addressing farmer and rancher stress and suicide in 14 states and 3 territories in the West. So I'm just going to say a couple words because I'm sure you're well aware about stress in agriculture. But on the one hand, we love the agriculture lifestyle. I'm certainly, that's my background. And on the other hand, there's high stress that's inherent in the agriculture lifestyle. So we're trying to work with both those issues. We don't need to go through the examples of stress in agriculture, but one of the publications that we did includes a lot of quotes, and I included one of the quotes here that's on examples of stress. These are quotes we did with 52 producers in the West. It's just there's so much uncertainty and uncontrollable things in the business. I mean, I know that the number one contributor to stress is things you can't control, and that's about all we have. And so you can see this is a major issue. Lots of correlates of chronic stress. And as you can see, agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting is one of the highest occupational suicide rates in the nation, 3.5 times higher than the general population, which right now is 14.8 per 100,000. So, and then you get into the physiological aspects of heart disease, sleep problems. So apart from the difficulty then with work productivity and actually managing the farm or the ranch, you have all of these physical issues. A couple of quotes on that I'm going to skip, except to say that the first one is talking about working 24/7 in town and then on the farm. And the second one is about how stressful the relationships were with his father as they saw farming in a different way. So this is in one of our publications, it's a resiliency model. We're looking at this through the lens of occupational resiliency, not the bounce back approach that we look at with psychological, where we're looking at the traits of the individual and what helps that individual to bounce back. We looked at this through the lens of occupational resiliency because the focus then is on the relationship between the occupation and the individual and how that influences work productivity during times of adversity. And so this model, which was created out of a couple of research projects, takes into account the agricultural lifestyle as well as the external stressors unique to agriculture, moving then into how you adapt to those stressors and supports and resources like extension that help us get through these difficult situations. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jill.
Okay, so we're going to watch the first film called Grounded in Family. And we would like you to listen for a few things. Like look for the types of stress that this Montana family farm family has experienced, and maybe what types of strategies did they use to deal with stress? And those might be like thought patterns or coping mechanisms. Also look for how did the family balance work and family in the context of their farm or ranch, and what were the factors that made the family resilient? So if you look for those things, we'll go ahead and show the film.
I grew up on this farm and just always want to be back. I'm fifth generation. My family moved out here from Minnesota in 1914 and homesteaded, and we've been here ever since. I love what I do. If you like what you're doing, you're really not working. Still am able to work with my dad. He still works with us every day. All last week, it was Dirk and Rhett and I and Dad working on a couple projects in the field. You know, not every family gets that.
So the farm is ran by my dad, and my younger brother and I help my dad run the operation. My grandpa, even though he is retired, does a lot of work still here on the farm. And my mom also helps on the farm when she's not teaching in town.
So as a teacher, I don't know how many years ago, we converted to a 4-day school week. So I feel like that's been very helpful on the farm, just because then I have the 3 days to be the farm wife, whatever that dimension might look like.
It's great to have the kids home and her home during the summer. She works for health insurance, and that's a huge deal. So, and that's kind of why she does what she has to do. She kind of gave up her career goals to let me have mine, I guess. So I thank her for that. Well, I don't know if I dislike anything about farming. You got to accept the fact that there are going to be things out of your control. Mother Nature is boss, and she always will be. You can't change it. Markets are out of your control. You just kind of try to adjust for it. Sometimes you don't adjust for it very well. Debt load. I mean, this business comes with that. There's no way around it. That would be a great thing to have, is not have that. It'd take a lot of stress off, but it's part of the business.
Stress is an everyday thing out here. And every day there's a new problem, whether it's weather or your machinery breaks down or something out of your control with a crop or something. There's always a new problem. So stress is always induced. First time I can remember stress really becoming a big thing is when I was driving combine for the first time when I was 8. I could finally see what some of the stress was coming through in the day when something would break on the combine or the crop wasn't living up to what we'd hoped. And when it comes to those aspects of life, when I see my dad and my grandpa and the rest of my family get stressed out, I just want to help them. So I try to do as much as I can.
I did grow up on a farm. I was raised on a farm and a ranch. My role on this farm is similar, but very different just because the times have changed. The scale of things is just so different. Like it's just been so innovative since that day. I watch my father-in-law embrace what my husband wants to change, and now my children trying to bring new technology, or they're walking the journey together to just always be better at what they do.
Every job here is a team project. Even if it's one person running the piece of equipment, it was a team assessment to set up that job and that task. Ultimately, my dad is the one who makes that decision. At the end of the day, it's his land and his operation. So whatever he says goes. I'm not the boss.
I was probably doomer and gloomier before I was married than after getting married. Carlene's she's been a good rock to smack me in the back of the head and say, rethink that. So, yeah.
Being a woman on a farm, I think, is often viewed more as a man's world. I have a lot of friends that is their livelihood, or they work right alongside of their husband and work equally as hard. And sometimes I think it's the perception maybe, and maybe I do that to myself just because I'm like, every day what I do helps them in some way. And so I sell probably that job short just because I'm jumping on the sprayer. but I might be the one that's making sure that they have a hot meal at the end of the day, or their laundry is done, or I help them shuttle the vehicle to this field or that field, drove combine for the harvest, rock picked for the day. Like our jobs are just so different. Even to add to that, a lot of what was maybe more required of me is less, just because I have two boys that want to be actively involved, and they would jump in front of me to go do that job because they probably love it more than I do even.
Having kids working with you is a pretty neat deal. All of our kids, Kennedy and Brett and Dirk, all three, they all had jobs to do. They're all made part of it.
Those are probably some of my favorite times, is the fact that we're always in a field together. We were always moving cows together. We were creating memories in a different way that maybe other families don't necessarily get to create those memories.
Tried not to make our burden their burden. I was cautious on that. I had somebody tell me once, don't burn them out. They won't come back. So, I mean, there's probably days I did, but we tried not to do that.
I'm not going to tell you it's always easy, especially as our mom. Like, I worried every day that they had left, or what they were doing, that they weren't going to get hurt. And are you sure that they're able to do that task that you are asking them to do? Because I probably think too much about something and freak myself out and scare myself that I can't always complete the task that they're asking the kids to do.
That keep them safe. I mean, there's pressures that you could. Last year we had Dirk lay a truck over, and it kind of put a scare in everybody's heart on that deal. And there's that would have been a lot of guilt had that went the wrong way, but it didn't, luckily.
Some of what your kids are doing, you feel like, especially as a mom, that you're like, I can control what they can and cannot do to some degrees to keep them safe. That's my job, to keep them safe.
So, I mean, sometimes you wonder if you should have them not working with you, if they'd be safer, but at the end of the day, it's better. I think they got to have their time to be a kid too, but I don't know. I couldn't give them money, so I could teach them how to work, I guess.
I think the problem solving come from growing up on a farm. You only had so much help in the field. My dad or my grandpa might not have been in the field at that certain time when I broke a section or had to go fix something on that header, and you just got to get outside and do it on your own. I've never had any external supports that I've reached out or been looking forward or into for helping, my mental health. I would hope if that situation ever came where my mental health became so bad that my friends and family would help me or make me seek out that mental health services.
I haven't personally. It might make more people go if somebody else was going. I don't know. A few years back, yeah, there could be a stigma, but today, I don't think so. I would say geographics would be the number one problem here. You're gonna have to travel somewhere to find somebody. You're gonna have to take time off your work day, to go to a scheduled appointment, probably. So that would be my take on that, but I'm probably more apt to just go to work because that's what we do. Sometimes my wife will tell me it's gonna be all right. So she'll put you back in a calm place.
I think I deal with stress the same way my grandpa and my dad dealt with stress. You just wake up every day and you get to work. At the end of the day, if I went home and I felt like I accomplished something that day, I would feel a lot better about myself than if I didn't, and if I was just staring at that giant workload and not doing nothing about it.
And as growing up, I don't think I was probably aware of the life stresses Dad had. I think he kept that off of my shoulders.
I think there's a lot of things that help us through our adversities. There's your family, the communication, your neighbors, knowing that they're willing to help you. There's the smart things to do to cover your back with crop insurance. Those help control a lot of the adversities that you have to deal with.
Always started to try to figure out my own problems on my own. But if I didn't end up getting to conclusion. So I'd always just go and talk to my family about what I was dealing with. That's where a lot of external support was where I ended up going if I ever needed help with anything.
You know, there's always a peer group of people in the same position you're in. So, I mean, our problems aren't just solely our problems. Everybody else is facing some of them same similar problems. And you need to stay positive and realize that some things are out of your control in this game.
Obviously, nobody wants to ever see their family farm leave their hands. So I hope that they would work hard to just make sure that it stays in family hands.
Usually when there's a farm sold, you know, there was a reason why, and it was either a financial reason, which is the number one fear in this game, you know.
I definitely want my kids to do what makes them happy. I want them to be in a profession that they're going to love to do so that they don't wake up every day and go, oh, I don't want to go to work again. But I don't want them to feel like that they have to come back here.
I don't want to see what the last 4 generations have worked for us to implode it on a hiccup of just life. I've always told Rhett and Kennedy and Dirk, I said, you guys got the best years of your life for college and on. And you got to find out where you want to be. You got to know where you want to be before you come back home. Because when you come back home, you're committed. You're home. So you don't want to be second guessing yourself on your life choice.
If this farm wasn't in the family, I maybe would still be interested in the egg systems and maybe would want to become a farmer. I don't know if as much passion as I have for it now would still be there because I wouldn't have grown up around it every single day for most of my life. But having grown up in a community like this that's driven by agriculture, lives off of agriculture, it'd be hard not to want to become a producer or at least someone involved in ag. I've always been told that this is something you don't have to come back for. You don't have to feel like you have to become a farmer. So I never felt obligated to take on this farming role, but I've always wanted to take on this farming role.
Okay, our second film, so we made that film with the help of Montana State, and then we realized that women might have a different viewpoint, and we also started to look into youth stress in rural areas and in ranch areas, and that led to some understandings that women have a suicide rate that's at the national average in women in agriculture. So that high suicide rate we were talking about, that's males in agriculture. And then we looked at the rural youth in the western states where we have very high suicide rates in many of our western states. And so our rural youth have even higher suicide rates than our urban youth in Reno or Las Vegas in our own state. So, and some of what's in the literature, and we don't have time to go into it, but the women have a different type of stress in some ways because role overload, managing farm work, but also off-farm jobs like Carla in the film we just saw, and also managing, balancing household, family kinds of relationships, and often multi-generational relationships. That's a different type of stress, particularly for younger married women in small farms. And that's who we interviewed for this next film. So, Jill?
Yeah, so the questions we'd like you to consider for this film is what kind of stressors are involved when you're a female farmer or rancher, and how did they describe that in the film? How did farmers and ranchers in the film demonstrate their resilience? And how did women connect with the community, and why was community engagement important to them? And how can extension professionals be more mindful in identifying farmers and ranchers' stressors as well as their resilience? And what's the role of Extension and other agencies in supporting small scale farming and ranching? So if you'll consider those, we'll go ahead and start the film.
Most of the people that I know that are really good farmers, they're like part magician or part wizard, you know?
All I wanted to do was farm because every day, all day was farming.
I love working outside. Working in the mud is actually a blast, especially when you're out there with other people who like working in the mud and you've got someone there to catch you if you're going to slip. It's just so wonderful to have the sun on your skin and the wind in your face. Bringing good nourishment to our community is wonderful.
So I try to farm as much as possible with nature instead of fighting it, working with it. It gives a purpose to my life and a routine. So I feel that it's worthwhile and important.
A lot of people are in this industry because they love what they do, but it doesn't mean that there aren't stressors. What if you can't make that loan payment? What if you can't make it work? A lot of people don't talk about that. You don't want to think that it has an impact on your mental health.
It was kind of a long and sometimes tortured path deciding to come back to farming. I think because there was a lot of cultural background noise that makes you think farming isn't valuable or important as a career in this country. And I had to give myself that permission that in fact it's fundamental. And it also is very fulfilling, but I don't think most people realize until maybe they plant their own little garden and go, oh, my radishes didn't even come up. Like, this is harder than I thought. Will they actually appreciate the complexity of food production in that form?
A lot of individuals get their food from the grocery store. They have no idea what it took to get that food into the grocery store or how that was even created. Or they don't want to think about that. They just want to criticize that process while they're eating their steak.
And so, yeah, I think that exposure is really valuable, not only for their own understanding, but also to elevate the stature of farmers in our society. It's like, why is a farmer not as valued as a lawyer or a doctor? These things are, if anything, they're, as fundamental as they get and important as they get to survival and health and well-being and culture. I think it's easy to take it for granted and then just sort of dismiss it. I'm Zoe Ida Bradbury Ducera, and I run Valley Flora Farm on the Southern Oregon coast. So what we did was create a pretty unusual format where each of us runs our own business, our own farming enterprise, and then we market collectively as Valley Flora. I think every year is a chance to reevaluate, and I just seem to keep coming back to it. But yeah, I want to keep doing this and love this.
My name is Pamela Toman, and I am a blueberry farmer, and I also teach middle school science, and I'm a mom. We bought the farm 5 years ago. About 60% of our business is you pick, and about 40% of our business are berries that we pick that we sell off the farm, either from folks coming into the sales shed or through, we have a little drive-through window.
My name is Stacy M., and I am part of a family farming and ranching operation on the Walker River Reservation in West Central Nevada. I was born into agriculture here on the Walker River Reservation. When my father graduated from college, all he wanted to do was farm. So he moved the family back here. I was 4 years old at the time. So the land that I'm standing on, I grew up on. And the farm and ranch has always had cattle off and on. Probably about 10 years ago, we diversified the hay operation and added a cattle operation.
My name is Kate Waters, and I am a farmer and a florist, I guess you could say. I got into agriculture about 10 years ago because I wanted to have a more intimate relationship with plants and hopefully make a difference for a small place.
I'm Amber Lipper, and I'm the owner operator of Camas Soil Farm along with my husband. And I'm a farmer and I'm a mom. Our farm is 16 acres and we're in the Willamette Valley of Oregon, which is where a lot of beautiful soil has settled over history. We service a 300-member CSA crop share program where we provide vegetables every week for 26 weeks.
I'm Katie Stokes, and I have a homestead and do a lot of farming activities on it with vegetables and orchards and animals. I grew up from the age of 10 on, living near a forest, and just loved being outside, and was lucky enough to, with some help from my parents, buy a piece of land when I was in my early 20s and mid 20s, and I've never stopped farming, just gotten more and more involved with it ever since. Mostly I just try to grow as much of my own food as possible. During the pandemic, I didn't go to a grocery store from March 13th till the 4th of July, but was pretty comfortable being at home for 3 months without a grocery store. Farming is a stressful period. You don't know what's happening, and there's often things that are unexpected that are really bad. It's stressful when crops don't work and you don't know why.
They're long days, it's very physical, and it goes on day after day after day. The growing season doesn't relent. So that can be challenging.
The stresses in agriculture have changed for me. They at first were financial. Like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to have a farm and a home on the farm? How are we going to have enough finances to purchase a farm?
The biggest challenge is basically getting started. It's not easy to purchase equipment at today's prices. When you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for equipment, hundreds of thousands or millions for land. If you love this lifestyle, how do you maintain it to the next generation? And I think that's why a lot of individuals that are ranchers and farmers have off-farm and ranch income.
There's a lot of worrying that goes on because most everything I grow is like kind of promised to somebody, which is kind of scary. You know, when you have a CSA, community supported agriculture, you've got these people, and I usually have about like 25 people a year that I'm growing something for them every week or every month.
Staffing, I think, remains a stress because, well, it's just a limited population who can really get out here and work really hard because we don't have a machine that can replace the human beings here. Everything comes in by hand.
Maybe it's my own insecurities, but it seems like if I was a male, I would be looked at a little differently, or maybe wouldn't have to prove myself quite the same way. Just like knowing that, yes, you don't have to go ask my husband. I made the decision and I told you what to do, and that's how it's going to be. And then he'll tell me that they went and had a conversation with him. But I'm like, why did they go ask him? I told them what I wanted them to do. So I think it was harder to get them to trust me. I feel like if I was a man in that situation, that would be a little easier.
I do think the sexism is worse in agriculture because it's a male-dominated field. I think there are assumptions that female bodies, you know, can't do the physical work that a man can do. But actually, our farm is predominantly female. We have about 12 total staff throughout the year, and this year 9 of them were female, and we've had one of our best years yet. I've had a lot of moments of people delivering fertilizer or supplies to the farm, or the gravel drop off, or the compost or whatever, who say things like little lady, or they ask for where the boss is, or will just ask to talk with Jonah because that might work out better.
I wanted to get a farm referral. I went into the assessor's office and I said, hey, we want a farm referral. We're farming. Oh, you need to bring proof of money. So I brought in the proof of money. No, that's not enough. You need to have $100 documented for every acre that you're farming. So then my husband went in and they said to him, oh, you just need to show intention to farm. So there was some discrimination there. That was definitely.
There's all kinds of hurdles to get there along the way. I hope that the resources are fanning out in everyone's direction. At the end of the day, it's certainly not an easy career choice.
Farming is stressful for everybody, but I think women tend to wear more different hats, and juggling things is harder.
women in any profession are finding that balance between their family responsibilities and the desire to want to be with your kids and also the responsibilities of work. I mean, my greatest joy in life is being a mom, and I wasn't willing to sacrifice the time that I wanted to be with my kids.
I might ask for help with childcare so that I know I can focus on work for a little longer and then be present with my kids when the workday is done. Because there has to be a completion time to the workday.
Most of the other responsibilities are on my plate at this point. I think probably the biggest piece of that is really whether it's society making me feel this way or my own needs and desires. I am the main caretaker of my kids, and I love being with them, and I love that. Occasionally I would feel misunderstood, that I was sort of disconnected from the farm, or that I just let it all go because I was postpartum and parenting a little baby. And at times I felt isolated, or that I was not there for them. I felt guilt about what I had to let go of.
In our culture, women are the primary parents, and definitely in my experience, I was the primary parent. I think that was the biggest stress, was that I was neglecting a really important role. One time, my youngest child came out and said, I was working in the garden, and she came and she said, I'm hungry. I was like, go make yourself a sandwich. She was 6 or so at the time. She came out again and said, hey, I'm really, I'm hungry again. When are we going to have dinner? I was like, just make yourself another sandwich. It's going to be okay. Then it was dark, and I came in and she said, well, thank goodness we're finally going to eat. I said, don't be ridiculous. It's bedtime. And here I was growing food for the family and not even feeding my child. And, it didn't take me too long to see the ridiculousness of that situation. But I don't think I stopped gardening to make meals. The key stress that I thought about in preparation for this is the stress of trying to be a mother and a farmer. And in retrospect, I think it was a terrible mistake, but I always put farming first. I figured my kids could take care of themselves. They were fed and clothed. They did well in school. But the idea that I would watch them play soccer, it's like, why in the world would I do that? They can play soccer by themselves. I'll get somebody to give them a ride to the soccer practices. I'm not going to be involved. My older girls feel a lot of hostility and resentment that they think, neglected during their lives. And for me, being on a farm was all I ever would have wanted as a child. So I thought, they had ponies, they could run wild in the woods, but they didn't have a lot of parental attention.
I think mental health is disguised. I don't think it's one of those things that farmers and ranchers want to talk about. I don't think it's the cultural norm for them to talk about it.
I didn't seek help emotionally for a long time. So I think there was probably help out there, but I didn't know it was possible, and I wasn't interested in having therapy, and didn't know of any support groups or anything. So
Sometimes it's very isolating experiencing those kinds of stressors as a farmer, partly because you're so busy. There isn't time to stop and get counseling or catch up with a friend. It's just head down, go, go, go.
And a lot of people will say things like, Pamela, do you think you're just trying to do too much? And I'm kind of like, yep. And I really don't know what I can cut out. So there's kind of always this background noise, and I'm trying to learn to reduce some of that.
We don't see ourselves in the advertising of agricultural things as much. I once went shopping at a store for some boots and found that all the female sized boots all had hot pink on them. I ended up getting the boots with the hot pink, and my husband, he'll wear pink too, but it's a funny thing. Work pants, they need to be just as durable for women as for men. We're both in agriculture. We're both on our knees. So we need our knee pads to be just as thick.
It's definitely still a man's world in a lot of ways. I don't really think I gender farming as much, in the sense that we just all are farming. And there is certainly a certain shared experience just in doing that. My strategies for dealing with stress, in a way, was the farm itself, being there. It's a beautiful place on earth, and there's a certain chi or energy that flows through that valley that is very grounding. And even if you're in the midst of a hustle bustle day, you can still tap into some greater energy that is very fueling and peaceful. I love being outside. That's a huge part of it for me. It was really stifling for me to be in front of a computer, sitting down at a desk all day.
I think it's what keeps me grounded and it's what keeps me happy is being outdoors. My mother used to always tell us, if you need to solve a problem, go sit on a tractor. But there's nothing better in this world than solving one of your basic problems, whether that's a mental health problem or not, on horseback or on a tractor.
But I find a lot of comfort and help in just being around staff and hearing their stories and that relatability. It reminds me that I'm not alone in my struggles. Even if I'm not sharing my own story with them, I'm hearing their stories and I'm finding comfort in that.
Yeah, there's no way that I could have done it by myself. I need lots of help.
We do have a very strong family unit. So we are able to support each other when things do go wrong. I think the other thing is taking that time to be the best you that you can be. And that may not be time on the ranch.
But I do have friendships, that I can call on and I can talk with. We can relate on the stressors of being a working mom and get a laugh together too, at the sort of insanity of of life. And yeah, I think that's a real strength and a real piece of resiliency that I have is being able to reach out to a friend and talk to them about these challenges.
I would say, at least the experience that I've had in this community is I think the women are pretty good at reaching out. I'm generalizing, but I'm not sure men would be as readily willing and able to show their vulnerability and ask for help.
I still put a certain gendered pressure on myself. I wear a lot of hats, and I think I've had to learn to maybe apologize less and educate more. I maybe take too much extreme ownership of it, like it's my fault, or I didn't do something well enough, or I wasn't proactive enough, or I wasn't prepared enough to head this off. I don't know. I could imagine that maybe men would not go there, that maybe they might have a higher degree of self-confidence or externalize it like it's someone else's fault or someone did this to me versus how am I responsible? If someone were to ask me right now, what is the biggest overarching stressor, it would be climate change and the effects that's having on farming and agriculture, the unpredictability of a season because of climate change.
In the last 5 years have become, how do you have a job that's predominantly outdoors when there are some environmental conditions which make it hazardous to work outside? In our vegetable business, we make about 3/4 of our revenue during 1/4 of the year. And during that quarter of the year is when we have the most risk for hazardous environmental conditions.
I think it's such a huge issue that it's easy to externalize it or throw it over there as like something that someone else is going to take care of. And to a certain extent, we need like huge solutions. And that's hard because I think when you love what you do so much and you love the place where you do it and you see it changing, it's very painful to think that it might not be there forever or be possible forever. It's really forcing us to just think about resiliency and how can we adapt and innovate? How can we make the farm resilient in the face of catastrophe? I have enormous respect for all of my peers and the farm workers that are out there doing this work as it becomes less and less hospitable climate-wise.
It's very lonely sometimes because you're just kind of off in your little world doing this work that's like separate from society. I would love to envision a future for farming where we're not devaluing farm labor.
We do a lot of on-farm meals with the staff. And so, eating together, growing together, being there for each other, those relationships are long lasting. And it's built this community on our farm. And I really love that. It brings me a lot of joy. We love our machines, but they can't replace the versatility and the warmth of human beings, you know, and the quality control of human beings, the community that the human beings bring. And so we've just had a lot of different types of people here, and it's worked out.
We're able to really make our livelihood just feeding the local community and not driving more than 40 miles north or south. Sort of a sweet little spot where all the factors have converged: the climate, the soil, the water, the human passion, and the community that wants to support it. I couldn't be more grateful.
It really helps farms when the community makes that little extra effort to buy local and invest in the stewards of the land in their own community. When you're buying from a local farm that's using practices that you agree with, then you're also supporting the land stewardship, you're supporting the dignity of those farmers growing the foods.
We need our farms to be community-based. Like, we need that connection. It would just be so great to have more involvement.
I do think that for a lot of people, food is just, you know, a way to stop feeling hungry and get on with the day. But there's so much more to it culturally and environmentally. It would be wonderful if it was more universally celebrated in that way.
I wish that our mainstream consumer knew where their food comes from and knew the opportunities and challenges that come with that and have a respect for that. It's changed from the way my grandfather farmed and ranched on this reservation to how my father is. That history and that generational education that's passed down between families is invaluable. We're not going to get that back.
Food is something that everyone needs every day, and it's something that unites us in a way that few other things do or can. I think in this day and age of the more and more urbanized country that we have, people are fairly disconnected from food production. And I forget that. You know, we have a lot of school groups that we bring out for tours, field trips, and I'm sometimes shocked at what kids don't know, that, you know, peas grow in pods or potatoes grow underground, or, you know, some of the basics of food production. So I think general exposure is great. Anytime someone can get next to a garden or next to a farm and see food in the ground, that's really valuable. I think it might help people connect the dots and recognize that it doesn't just come out of the freezer aisle in a plastic bag. You know, there's so much that happens prior to that moment. I also long for people to have the taste of a real tomato, the flavor that has been lost in the industrialization of food over the last few decades. If food can't make a memory for you, then it's probably not going to rise as a very important thing in your life experience, and therefore not be something that you care very much about, and therefore maybe not care very much about agriculture and the farms and farmers that produce it.
I'm doing men's work, but I'm a woman, and I felt good about that. I didn't ever wish that I wasn't a woman, or wish that I wasn't a farmer. I liked being a woman farmer a lot. I still do.
Reach out to your community, whatever that might be.
What is truly going to make you happy?
Why not farm versus why farm?
Dream big, start small.
Just be kind to yourself.
I think we carry on. It's almost like you can't not.
Okay. Jill, questions and comments? Feedback?
Jill, you're on mute.
Oh,
Sorry about that. I noticed that Cheryl had commented in the chat that family support contributes to family resiliency.
Mhm.
let's see, we've got a few others. That it was great and powerful and an amazing job, and thanks to all the families who participated. Any other comments or thoughts on what stressors you saw, but also how what coping mechanisms and supports did they have to become resilient? Christy says that stressors are both the discrimination towards female farmers versus male farmers, and not being seen by manufacturers, bankers, etc., and the balance between being a parent and being a farmer, and the emotional toll of seeing that the farming profession is not as valued and respected, and in some cases, as it should be. Interestingly, that female farming is on the rise each year. Anyone else have any comments or questions?
I had, can you guys hear me pretty
We
good?
can.
Sure. So, I'm kind of interested in the production of the videos, and a lot of that has to do with my background is in communications. So I was curious, like, how did you guys go about getting this video put together? Was it a team effort? I know as researchers, you had the questions, which I feel is kind of a basis for the direction of the video, but like, how did you guys develop a script together? Or like, how was that part?
Well, it was that's a really good question. It was uh, iterative in a sense that what we started with, our vision when we started wasn't where the film about women ended, the because of what they said. And so every time we interviewed, we we went to our local PBS station, and they said to do this film would cost 700,000, and we had 50,000 in our grant. So we used students. So
Okay.
we had students do it, and I thought they did a great job. And we traveled together as a team to. I went with the students to each of the locations, and extension folks in the West helped me to select the people that we interviewed and helped me to get permission. And it was really a wonderful process. There's a lot more to making a film than I realized. There's, there's, you've got hours of film, and then you're trying to figure out what's the most important thing here. But so thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, and students, I think sometimes we don't think about the skill sets they have and how they can contribute to, like, some of it's just the technology. But a lot of it too is, I think that they may see, I think they grew up more in a documentary era where people go to, locations outside of kind of their norm. And I guess they call it ethnography, like in a research term, and go into communities that they're not exposed to. But I think that's a good thing in terms of, like, you're coming in not understanding. And so when you do your research and you do your interviews, it tells a story in itself. So I thought it was well done.
Well, I'll pass that on to Zoe. It was a female film crew, and they were from urban backgrounds. And so as kind of shocked as they went through the process and they learned more about agriculture, they were moved by the experience.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Cheryl asked if we sought out a professional documentary filmmaker, but we used at our university, at the University of Nevada, Reno, we have a center, Brenda, an organization, and where students are learning filmmaking. And so it was student filmmakers who helped us produce these. And then Angela had commented that if food does not create a memory, it will not be important. Therefore, agriculture may not be important, or something similar to that. And she felt that that statement in the film was very powerful.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd also like to say that the first film, that's traditional multi-generational farming. In this second film, only one, Stacy M. from the Walker River Reservation here in Nevada, had multi-generational land. The others all bought their land, and they were all very financially successful. We were looking for resilient women farmers. We weren't looking for a story that there's a lot of films out there that are looking for the half empty glass. We were trying to focus on, wow, you can go into farming. And you can do this, and you can find a way to purchase land and to enter an industry that might be new to you.
I have a question. I work with the University of California Cooperative Extension, and I do like outreach to Spanish speaking growers, immigrant farmers that are small scale. And I work mostly with Mexican farmers. And so I think this film, like, it was so cool and it was so fun to watch. And it made me think a lot about like resilience along cultural lines too. And kind of how that looks different according to like where you come from and what those values and stuff that you have first been implemented in you. And so I was just curious to know if you guys know of any scholarship that kind of talks about these like efforts of resilience within agriculture across kind of cultural lines, or also scholarship that kind of touches on where agricultural labor and like reproductive labor kind of overlap.
It's interesting that you brought that up and that you're from California, because our partner at UC Davis, Esme, who's in RASP at UC Davis, I think she's done the best job of trying to learn more. And part of that is having language skills really helps, and trying to learn more and understand more. What we've been doing is in our publications, we're trying to center in on different groups as we see who responds to our survey, so that we can develop a deeper level of understanding on that topic. Because I think what you've raised is really very important. And if you don't, I would be happy to connect you with her if my email's in the box.
That would be great. Actually, I work under UC Davis, so
Okay.
that's
Oh,
awesome.
you
Yeah.
do? Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I do.
she's and she's also done a lot of work with migrant farm. One of our 3 publications is on the stress of direct workers, which is so different than producers. And so she's gone out there and also done a lot of interviewing with direct farm workers, and their stressors are incredible, and a lot of difficult situations for them right now, particularly.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Alexandra, Cheryl comments too that she has a PBS film on female farmers that's been translated into Spanish. And so she says to email her. So check the chat for that. And Julie has put in Esme's email in the chat as well. So thank you for that. And we also have posted in the chat a little bit about the how to comment more on the Growing Humanity film. And that's the film with the women. So we'd love to have more comments on that. And we'd love to have you email us any questions that you might have for our panelists next month as well. And I'll put our emails back in the chat too.
So we have 4 people on our panel, 2 of whom they're all from the RASP network, and 2 will be responding to questions and making comments about the Montana film. And the other 2 will be responding to Growing Humanity, the second film. And so we're hoping to just have the opportunity to discuss some of these issues, and it would really help the panelists if you had questions. And if you were willing to offer those questions, to give them some direction as to what you might be interested in. And we really hope that you'll join us for that. Also, I want to note that the second film did win a film festival award, which we were really proud about.
And Brenda, one thought from Tessa, as she mentioned how she thought it was interesting to hear one of the farmers talk about the value of most of her staff also being women. And Bud mentioned that it certainly caught his attention on women's struggle with discrimination. He said, my folks don't have issues internally because natives often have a matriarchal culture. However, they certainly have even more hurdles off the reservation. I believe even more so than the women of other descents.
And that's interesting. That's been one of the research projects that we're proposing here in Nevada with Stacy M., who's an extension educator here in Nevada, and looking deeper into our with our fur tip group into what's happening on the reservations with the projects for both men and women. We'd like to do some additional work on that. It's been harder to access federal funding if you present a project that has a narrower population, but that's a challenge we're facing right now.
Thank you for bringing that up. With the pandemic really brought a lot of this stuff to the surface. My position was almost created after the fact to get out there and help them start growing their own food. Food security is just ridiculous here. It it just brings tears to your eyes, and so anything that this stuff can help with, I sure appreciate any comments.
Bud, where are you out of?
I am out of Gallup, New Mexico. I'm New Mexico State University tribal agriculture agent. And in New Mexico, we have four agents specific to the tribal communities. We have a northern Pueblo agent, a southern Pueblo agent. I am the agent that serves the Navajo Nation. And then we have a 4-H tribal 4-H agent that is strictly 4-H out of our extension department at New Mexico State University. So I'm in Gallup, New Mexico.
Yeah, that's wow, you're well resourced in terms of being able to provide assistance. I've done 4 suicide trainings on the Navajo reservation, but I haven't done anything that's narrow to ag, just general suicide prevention work. So that's wow, that's fantastic. What you're doing is
Yeah, it
fantastic.
really ties the stress and that kind of thing really ties into food security here.
Mhm.
And people are really trying hard to protect themselves from, they closed Gallup down during the pandemic, and they weren't allowed to even come to town to buy groceries. And often they don't have water; they come to town to truck their water in. It was a scary, scary mess, and so it kind of opened everybody's eyes that we needed to do something about that. And I'm really thankful to my university for focusing so much resources on that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's yeah.
Well, we're so glad that all of you were able to participate in this, and would love to hear your comments about the film. And if you have any questions or things that you'd like us to pose to the panelists next month, we would love to have you email us. And those emails are Brenda Freeman, so Brenda, BrendaFreeman @unr.edu. And my email is my last name, Tingey, Tingey, J, my first initial, @unr.edu. And thank you, Angela, for your kind words.
Thank you all so much for joining us today and engaging. What powerful documentaries. I'm so excited that we get to continue this conversation next month. I hope you all can join. It will be, I put it in the chat, but I already have forgotten the date. February 25th.
25th.
Yes. And if anyone has missed anything that was linked in the chat or the recording or anything you want to reference, I will be sending out everything via email, including Brenda and Jill's email addresses. So be looking for that.
Thank you, Melanie.
Yes, thank you, Melanie, again for the opportunity to share with you today.
Yeah, thanks so much.